You might have seen yesterday that I was able to post a poll asking which recent IPO would you like for me to talk about. Now, the winner of that one was Vimeo, but I do apologize. The company I'm talking about today is actually going to be Squarespace. And reason being is just because, once again, I'm not feeling 100% today. I already started my research on Squarespace and just didn't have it in me to do a full deep dive on Vimeo, but I'm hoping to be able to get that video out tomorrow. So anyway, let's go ahead and play the intro so we can talk about Squarespace. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name is Matt, and as always, before we get started here, I just need to say, not advice, don't take this as advice. If you need advice, speak to a financial advisor, but this is just for your entertainment purposes only. Also remember, liking this video is a 5-cent donation for charity, and subscribing is a 10-cent donation for charity. Now, as I mentioned there in the intro, the company we're going to be talking about today is Squarespace. And if you're not familiar with Squarespace, they are a website building and hosting platform that launched back in 2004. The founder of Squarespace, Anthony C., I don't know how to say his last name, actually launched Squarespace from his dorm room at University of Maryland, and he was the only employee at the company until they reached $1 million in revenue. Now, Squarespace and Square are not the same thing. They do have partnerships. We might touch on that a little bit later in this video, but Squarespace is mostly focused on building websites for businesses, but they also do allow for you to have other websites, like whether that be a blog or even a website to set up if you're planning a wedding. And this might sound familiar from a few companies I've talked about on my channel before, and those companies would be Wix and one of my all-time favorite companies, Shopify. And that's because they are very similar companies and do compete in a pretty similar playing field. But I think that's a great transition into the numbers because those two companies are going to be the ones we're going to be comparing Squarespace to this week. Now, the first thing here we're going to touch on is the market cap, and I think there's two things here that I really wanted to touch on. The first one is when you look at Squarespace's market cap compared to Shopify, it really is just a drop in the bucket. But when I see that, I do view that as an opportunity that maybe Squarespace in the future, maybe it won't reach a $150 billion market cap, but I think that this company absolutely has a lot of room to grow. Even if it were to reach a $25-30 billion market cap, I think would be a little bit more appropriate for a company like this. Also, the reason why I think the market cap for this company carries a little bit of significance is because when they were originally planning on hitting the public markets, they were expecting to have around a $10 billion valuation or $10 billion market cap. And as we could see, this is obviously a little bit less than that $10 billion, meaning that maybe we do have a better buying opportunity right now with this company than we would have if they actually did hit the markets at that $10 billion valuation. You'll also see this week I did not do a price to earnings ratio because there wasn't any listed for Squarespace or Wix. So I did go ahead and take a look at the price to sales ratio. And this is actually very promising to see because as I've mentioned before, the price to sales, we are looking at like that 1 to 2 range for it. And Squarespace does sit right in there at 1.55, especially compared to Shopify at 43.25 and Wix at 13.98 does give me a little bit of hope that maybe there is a value opportunity here with Squarespace. Now, full disclosure, this is company from every other metric that you'll take a look at if you want to do your own research. Squarespace is definitely still considered a highly valued company, but the reason why I want to kind of compare some of these numbers together is to show you that this two-sided marketplace tends to have some pretty rich valuations. So just because this is a higher valuation than what we'll traditionally see with companies, I think that's where it's more important to focus on the sector or the industry that company is in, rather than just looking at what the entire market is doing as a whole. The revenue growth wasn't too promising for me though when it comes to Squarespace being at 28.14%, especially when we look at a company like Shopify that is just shy of 100% revenue growth. Now, I know I love Shopify and I do tend to hype them up a little bit, but that 100% revenue growth, again, for a company that's been around for a while and has been growing very quickly, is still very encouraging to see, especially if you are a shareholder. And Wix isn't too bad, a little bit more in line with Squarespace's at 34.14%. Admittedly, I wish Squarespace's was a little bit higher, but with it only being whatever that comes out to be, like 6% less than Wix, it's not necessarily a huge deal for me right now. The net income margin, not something I traditionally like to talk about, but once again, I just wanted to compare these. So with it being 5.96%, I honestly did believe that it would be a little bit higher than that. Now, I know that they have some marketing expenses that we'll talk about in a second here and some other things that they're doing to help grow their business, but looking at something like Shopify at 46.67%, I really think Squarespace can do a better job of increasing that net income margin. Now, without being a huge computer person, I don't know this, but I can imagine when you own companies or run companies like this, I'm sure there's a lot of infrastructure you need, and it's probably not necessarily the cheapest business to run. But considering other people are using that to then create their own business, I just assume the margins would be a little higher. Now, Wix is on its own island right now with this negative 23.01%. I know I did a review on them recently, and I don't recall why their net income margin is so low. It might have to do with them building that new plant for people to work at or something. But that was a little weird to see how bad Wix's net income margin is. Especially, I could be wrong here, but I do believe Wix is the oldest of these three companies. I'm going to check on that. Never mind. Wix is not as old as Squarespace. I didn't even check Shopify, but Wix started in 2006, so it's about 2 years newer than Squarespace. And lastly, for these quick ratios, again, one of the things that I love about Shopify is their quick ratio at 16.35. Really does make it hard to look at these other numbers when you see something so high, but I think that's one of the things Shopify does best. Squarespace does have the 0.63. Now, with this being a recent listing, I haven't been able to see exactly what they're doing with their money. And again, I'll touch on that in a second, but I do wish that was a little bit higher of a quick ratio for this company. Also, considering that they went public through a direct listing instead of a traditional IPO, they might have been able to benefit from raising some cash in the IPO offering instead of the direct listing. But this is something I'm sure we'll be able to uncover as we take a little deeper dive into this company and as I'm able to do a little bit more research. And Wix, 1.65, that's a number I'm pretty comfortable with, and I like to see for a lot of companies, despite them having a negative net income margin, at least we know they still have a good amount of cash on hand in case they do need to raise cash in the future. So now I just want to run through here what I do and don't like about Squarespace. And I'll start with what I do like. As I've mentioned many times before on my channel, I love these two-sided marketplaces or businesses that are set up that allow other people to create a business. I think 2020 was a great example of a time that people are willing to go out and create their own online business. It could be a great side hustle, and as our whole gig economy tends to grow, I think that we'll start to see more and more people having some form of an online presence, whether that be an e-commerce store, a blog, a vlog, a YouTube channel, social media, anything like that. So I'm a big fan of these kind of businesses. And while I love Shopify, their business really is focused on the e-commerce aspect, and they're now starting to get into more of that in-person sales system with having just launched their point of sale system, which if you look at it is a pretty cool looking machine. Now, Squarespace also does give you the ability to do an in-person sales. They partnered with Square for that, so you can use Square to link it up through Squarespace, and that way you can have all your analytics on one page, which as a business owner is going to be something very important to have. But I really also do enjoy the fact that Squarespace offers more than just an e-commerce platform. They do have some really eye-catching website templates for people to use, and I think that is great to see that they also allow for people, again, to create things like blogs or a wedding website, all on that same platform. You can also utilize Squarespace for things like booking appointments, which I'm sure can be utilized by people like a hairdresser or a home inspector, and can just be a really great feature to have on your website. And to my knowledge, I do not believe that's something that Shopify offers. So that's one of the things that I love about Squarespace actually over Shopify is I do think they have the ability to have a broader reach in who they're able to get to use their platform. Squarespace to me also has much more competitive pricing than Shopify. Shopify, well, yes, it's relatively cheap to get started using their platform. It is in the long run going to be more expensive as your business starts to grow, where Squarespace is a relatively affordable place to start your business and grow. Now, we can always make the argument that Squarespace might be for really small and then medium-sized e-commerce or business sites, where Shopify is definitely that medium to large or even enterprise level business sites. Nonetheless, though, I do believe Squarespace has an attractive price point, which can be really helpful to get people onto their platform, start messing around with it, and maybe actually create their own business. Also, side note, I did see when I was on Squarespace's site earlier, they are doing a 20% off promo right now. If you are looking to start one of these businesses, just check that out. Maybe you could take advantage of the 20% off. No, it's not an affiliate link. I just always like to point that stuff out when I do see it in case somebody out there can use that. And as I said, they are partnered with Square, so I do like seeing that they have some of these strategic relationships. They also have something going on with Etsy, so they are starting to form relationships or partnerships with other companies that will really help benefit benefit the user of these platforms and ultimately help drive sales to their business. Now, for things I don't really like about Squarespace, first one being that this is a brand new company to the public markets. As I've said before, I don't generally like when companies are fresh on the markets regardless of how old they are as a business, because a lot of times we do experience some volatility. We're not able to go back as far with like research and data for us to make a really informed decision. So that is something that is a little bit of concern for me. And with them being a direct listing, this is obviously going to create some volatility for this company, because a lot of times direct listings are put out there, again, to create liquidity for the private investors. So usually when a company goes public through a direct listing, assuming that they don't have any kind of like lockup period, then usually a lot of these private investors sell out quickly so they can get their money back. And as I was doing my research, I did see it seems like a lot of people really do prefer using Shopify over Squarespace, because it seems like Shopify has some more robust features which can really help a business when it comes to scaling, growing, data collection, all of that fun stuff. Now, of course, there's always going to be room for more than one player in this space, like at McDonald's to Burger King, Walmart to Target, Lowe's to Home Depot. But I do think that Shopify tends to have a much larger advantage over Squarespace, which again is something of concern to me. Now, I also did see that Squarespace has spent a ton of money on advertising that I'm not sure is fully needed. They purchased space during the 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18 Super Bowls, which, as we all know, is not a cheap place to get advertising from. They also recently started advertising by placing their logo on the New York Knicks basketball jerseys. So this company spends a lot of money on advertising, and kind of similarly to how I felt with Airbnb spending a lot on advertising, I just don't fully understand that move. Sure, some advertising will always be required, but ultimately it should be up to the business owner that set up this website to drive traffic to their site to create sales, which is how Squarespace would benefit from that. So if I was running a company like this, I would obviously have some form of advertising running, but it wouldn't be any of these huge heavy hitters like basketball jerseys or during the Super Bowl. Probably be something more like Facebook ads or something, just to get the name out there for a relatively affordable cost. Now, there are a few things that I'm going to be watching out for looking forward with this company, whether that be through press releases or earnings reports, just to make sure I have a better understanding with this company. And the first thing I want to see, and I don't know if this statistic is out there already, is how many signups are they receiving on a monthly or annual basis, or even a quarterly basis. But not only how many people are signing up for the site, how many people are signing up for the site and either converting at least one sale, booking one appointment, getting at least one engagement from somebody on this site. Meaning how many people are actually signing up for this and then having or starting a successful business through this site. Kind of leaning on the same thing, but I also want to see what is the retention rate. How long do people actually utilize this service before either just shutting down their business or switching to another platform like Shopify? Because I think that'll absolutely be a crucial measurement for this company. And I would be very curious to see if they have any plans on making any acquisitions in the future. As I mentioned a few times during this video, one of the features they have on their platform is the ability to set up a wedding website, like a registry. And I would wonder if maybe they would consider acquiring a company like Zola, who is in the same industry, because as much as I love this e-commerce platform or this space where you can build an e-commerce site, to me it is just starting to become a little saturated with how many companies we have out there. Because we have Wix, Shopify, Squarespace, Square even has their own platform, there's WooCommerce, I believe it's called, and WordPress is another one. So there's a lot of other players in this field, and I think a company like Squarespace could benefit if they were to either acquire or just help kind of shrink this space and consolidate it into maybe just a few big players. But these are things we won't know, especially since they're a newer company, until it's either discussed or we'll just have to watch out for in future earnings calls. Now, with that being said, probably comes as no surprise, I did add this to the portfolio, but I only bought about $2,800 worth of this stock because it is so new to the public markets. Again, I do expect some volatility with this, but as I've said before, I at least wanted to make sure I had my toes in the water with this company and it was not going to miss out on another opportunity with this in case it does grow exponentially, like what we saw with Shopify. So let me go ahead and get the portfolio pulled up and I'll be right back with you. All right, so as you can see here, I did buy 50 shares of Squarespace at about $56 a share, and it was last at $56.85. So we have about a $42 gain, which is pretty good to see. Again, that's just from this morning though, so I don't expect it to be anything huge right now, and I definitely expect some volatility to see here. You'll also see that I did add a few shares of Shopify. Just as I was doing my research, I remembered how much I love Shopify as a company, and I wanted just to add a little bit more exposure of that company into this portfolio. I did do a whole video on Shopify a while ago, so I'm probably overdue to do a follow-up one to that. But if you are interested, definitely check out that video because you'll understand why I like Shopify so much. That one also, we just bought 5 shares at $1,233. It's now up to $1,237, giving us about a $20 gain. Again, just from this morning, so I'm not really getting all excited over that because I do expect volatility with that one as well. Just a few other highlights. Jumia is back in the green for us, which is great. $99, almost a $100 gain. VOO is about to break $400 in gains for us, so that's something exciting. Blackstone staying strong at over $1,200 for us. And Sealed Air making, if I recall correctly, making a little bit of a comeback here for us, being up at $269. Again, that's a really boring company, but at least it's in the green for us. Little upset to see that Roblox is down kind of heavy for us, but as you can tell, this portfolio is almost in the green again, which is going to be very exciting to see because it's been a long time since we've seen this portfolio over $1 million. Remember, this is paper trading, not my own money. I wish it was real money, but it is what it is. So that is my review of Squarespace. Again, I apologize if this is not my most detailed video, if I seem to be lacking energy. I'm just really not feeling great today at all. I didn't get much sleep last night, so I'm going to wrap up here and maybe go take a nap. So thank you so much for taking the time of your day to watch this video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really appreciate that. But I will let you go ahead and enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next time.